when Jacob said what he said in this blessing, absolutely God's finger was on it. Levi, you will be scattered throughout Israel. Well, if Levi scattered throughout Israel, those are the cities of refuge. Those were actually those. For example, Jeremiah was from Anatot. Anatot. That was the city of refuge Jeremiah was from. Just as an example, that was a city of refuge. But yes, that's exactly right. Okay, question 7. Go ahead, Aaron.
I do I don't know, I kind of see it a little more simply than that. Really, the connection there with this cursing and the reason why Levites had no inheritance. I see it more, what you said at the second half of that. Of like this is, there's this progression of the Lord preparing his people and the world to understand the New Testament and what is the spiritual arrangement that he's developing. And so he selected one of these tribes to carry out as to be separate and to have a different kind of inheritance. Not that they didn't get an inheritance that they're punished, but more so that they're getting a different inheritance for them to see the type and the shadow of what was to come of us. You know, we are the priests. We are spiritual Levi in the sense, as Christians in the age of Christ. And so I don't really see the connection there as far as like the Levites were being punished for, for what happened with Dinah. More so that God had selected one of them to be mediators for the people in the same way, in so many different ways that we are, priests. We are spiritual priests today.
Okay, so let me ask you this: why Levi?
Well, it could have been in but I mean, he picked Levi because he picked Levi. I don't see.
Well, let's go back to Joshua.
Because Simeon and Levi were cursed there in that sense with the foretelling of what's going on.
Sure.
And in Joshua 19, they do get an inheritance in Judah.
Yes.
Judah's land was so vast, and so I think that if it would care for one, it would care for the other. If that's the line of reasoning.
Well, it was both.
Well, only Levi was the one that had no inheritance. But it was Simeon and Levi in the
yes.
So I just see it as that he had selected one of them to prepare a way, in the same way that he selected Joseph to save the people. And
so you're
out of abandonment, why would Joseph? What it will.
Okay, so are you saying that all of the evidence presented is more or less coincidence, and then it was just Levi because God said so?
Yeah,
I don't really see that. I think there's way too much text that points. I get what you're saying about Simeon, but Levi is also in that, and I was going to Joshua. Let me go back. Because if that was just God's plan, hang on, we gotta get back to the text here.
I wonder if, because Levi was the one that initiated it, where Simeon could be just say an accomplice. I mean, he's involved, but he wasn't the one that came up with the great scheme.
Well, I don't really see that in Scripture, though.
The greater punishment goes For the one that orchestrated everything.
I mean, I could draw, I just, that's how I see it, as far as like, the context of what that's chapter 5. Is really talking about pine trees, not necessarily, the whole tribe, but,
No, no, I'm just giving you a history of why Levi. I'm not saying that that's what exactly Hebrews, the Hebrew writer is trying to point out to us in Hebrews chapter 5. I'm going way back in history and asking the question, well, why Levi? I mean, is God actually rolling the dice like the Calvinists say that he does? No, he's not. He's touching base with history and going forward.
but that's the same thing, why was Jesus led Judah? I don't think that Judah did, and, the son of Israel to, be lifted up above the others to be one identity. Jesus,
Yeah, sure, and we'll get to that as well, because that's a little bit further down in that same chapter, where Jacob blesses Judah, and it's very prophetic in how Jacob blesses Judah.
so he blessed them, but there wasn't anything that Judah did that lifted him above his brothers for the to deserve that blessing. I think in that same way, it's nothing. I think what Janet said about, he's foretelling the future of what's to come, more so than punishment on the whole line, because of what they did.
Yeah, well, there is a little bit more there, when you go back to Joseph being sold into slavery, and who actually stood up for this bad idea? Reuben, and then Judah.
I have a question, Eric.
Judah's the one that said, hey, don't kill him, let's just sell him off.
So we're trying to figure out, if you're saying that they were in line to be the priest because of the slaughter that they did. So I understand that part, but why is that slaughter would cause them to turn priests of God? Just, like, I understand, but they were slaughtering all the animals, because of them slaughtering Shechem and his, but, so my question is, right, what would, why can't it just be God saying, this is who I want to be my priest out of the 12 sons of Israel? Could it be just as simple as that, that was just what he chose? Why,
Yeah,
Why?
sure,
why
Yes.
does slaughtering got to do with being a priesthood?
if we read nothing else tonight than just Joshua chapter 13, verse 14, that would be the conclusion.
13 verse 14?
Yes. Only under the tribe of Levi he gave none inheritance. The sacrifices of the Lord of Israel made by fire are their inheritance, as he said unto them. If that's all we read, that would be the conclusion. But we have seen a whole lot more evidence. And
So we're saying that the tribe of Levi was chosen way before Moses and Aaron. Correct.
yeah, I'm not saying exactly, well, this is exactly what God was saying. I mean, who am I to say that?
Okay. Yeah.
All I'm doing is presenting the evidence to say, why Levi? Yeah, why Levi? That's a really great job. But somebody's got to do it. And then someone actually said, well, like it was you. Well, it's a blessing.
Well, I mean.
Because you're actually, rolling the sin of a nation back an entire year. So I think it's important to look at those things. God is not a God that just, well, what will be, will be.
No, never,
Yeah.
never.
There's a lot more evidence here. And that's why I'm showing you. And then, so if that's all we read, was that verse 14? We can make that conclusion. That's not all that's there. And then, if we go to verse 32 of Joshua, 14 as well, these are the countries which Moses did distribute for inheritance in the plains of Moab on the other side of Jordan by Jericho eastward. So now Moses is involved. Where did Moses come from? Yeah, so it was definitely not just,
I guess I just never really thought why Levi and why Judah. I
Yeah.
just never questioned.
It probably is not a good profession.
yeah,
So
sure,
Levites, since they had that thirst of blood,
Yeah.
I didn't even put that together until you just brought it up.
yeah,
I mean, they had a thirst, anger. Man, we do stuff in anger that.
yeah. We all get up in the morning and we put our pants on the same way. Why Judas?
They had to have an appetite.
Because God said, you're it? No. Okay, so, I think I'm running out of time here. Jack?
So I don't know if this has to do anything with it, but in Exodus chapter 32, whenever the whole golden calf situation happens,
The whole what?
golden calf.
Oh, yeah.
So it says in verse 26, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered around him. And then the sons of Levi killed all the Israelites that were being rowdy or whatever. And then down in verse 29 it says, and Moses said, today you have been ordained for the service of the Lord, each one at the cost of his son and of his brother, so that he might bestow a blessing upon you this day. So
Okay.
that might be
Yeah,
an extra reason.
Very
why
good.
Levites were chosen.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Janice.
The things that happened to Simeon and Levi, sometimes things are etched in history, but it doesn't mean that God doesn't look back and they aren't recompensed for the work of their hands, be it good or evil. So they did this thing and it was wrong, but they had to be repaid for it. So I'm thinking that could be one of the reasons why when Jacob said, I will tell you what will happen to you, he laid this out, cursed be your anger, and you will be scattered, and that could be part of the reason too.
Yeah. Okay. All right, very good. All great comments. A lot to consider. All right, let's do one more question here. According to Hebrews 5:4, how are Christ and Aaron alike? So we've contrasted. Now, how are they alike?
Those appointed, called and appointed by God.
Yes. Verse 4 says, and no one assumes this honor, and we could say price. You look up that word honor, you can, no one assumes this honor or price on his own initiative, but only when called to it by God, as in fact Aaron was. Okay? The high priest, Aaron, and the high priest, Jesus Christ, are alike in the regard that they are both dutifully obedient servants to God's master plan for mankind's debt to sin and resolution for payment of sin.
That since they were appointed, right? Or since they were
Yes,
appointed. So
yes. And that's what verse 4 says. You can't assume the office unless you're called to do so. Yes. And I believe that's all we have time for this evening.